Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the anime movie Okko's Inn on Netflix. And I thought this film was okay. The biggest kind of problems I kind of had with it was kind of the balancing of the supernatural elements that come into play and how I felt that to get the full impact of the kind of vignettes that are in here, that you would actually need to do this more as a TV show more than as a movie. But overall, it was okay. It didn't do anything completely and utterly horrendous. It just didn't live up to the kind of potential that I saw that it could have really done. Now, granted, you usually need more time to expand upon these things and kind of link it more together with kind of what Okko learns in each kind of thing, but it's still better than other things that I've seen. So we start off and we see that there's this family at this festival, and the parents are kind of talking about how their parent, uh, pretty much Okko's grandmother, is dealing with this whole kind of inn and everything, and they're going to have to start doing some plans there to see if they need to take it over or whatnot. And Okko's like, hey, we kind of have to get going, watch out for the traffic. And then they kind of bus on through, and they're on the road and everything, and then suddenly out of nowhere, truck comes out from the other lane of traffic and slams into their car. And we see that Okko sees the vision of a boy kind of floating above her as she's kind of on the roof of a car, safe. And it's like, oh god, yeah. So they gotta be done. And we see that she has then packed her things and she's going to live with her grandmother, who runs that inn around the town where that festival was going on. And she says that she'll see you later, to an empty apartment. It's like, okay, that's kind of weird. But we see throughout the film that she's still having kind of trouble dealing with her situation. We see that she kind of goes to the inn, is kind of freaked out by all the bugs and everything, and screams a lot. And the grandmother's like, hey, why are you doing that? And all that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, she's freaking out about the bugs, sure. I'd kind of give her a little bit more leeway, but that's just kind of me. She gets in, and then she sees the boy again, and we find out that she can see the spirit dude. And we find out that it is a boy who used to be friends with the grandmother. And pretty much gets her to take up being the next innkeeper, being like a junior innkeeper. We see her kind of interacting with the grandmother and everything like that. She has to make sure that the guests are okay. It's kind of a small, very traditional kind of Japanese kind of inn, and it's run that way. I'm like, that's actually a pretty sound business model. Now, granted, it is in Japan, but I'm like, there are people that would like that kind of disconnected kind of attitude, because it doesn't look like that it's really got a lot of Wi-Fi or anything or really modern amenities. It's just, okay, the biggest kind of selling point are these hot springs that are supposed to be welcoming to everyone. So that's kind of cool, but that doesn't really play that much into the plot, except for like the first kind of bit and kind of marketing aspects. It's like, okay, cool, because you don't really see anybody actively healed by the hot springs. I understand it could also be used as kind of like a metaphor or whatnot, but it's more like the people around doing it, like Okko and her grandmother, and the staff acting like good staff and taking care of the people that stay at the hotel. So she's freaking out that she could see a ghost, and the grandmother's like, what the hell are you screaming about, pretty much, and she decides not to tell her grandmother about that stuff. And then, of course, she gets the info from Uribo about, like, their whole kind of ordeal, and he wants her to help his old friend. And then, of course, she kind of goes and starts doing stuff around, dressing up in traditional kind of garb, trying to figure out how to walk around and do all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay. And it's really kind of weird, because this is a little girl in elementary school. And she goes to the new school, introduces herself, and pretty much gets accosted by Pink and Fluffy. I mean, granted, that's kind of like her nickname and thing, but she does get a little bit more humanized. But she pretty much gets off as the kind of rival to her, even though she really does nothing to instigate. Like Okko doesn't do anything really to instigate the rivalry, except having issues with like Uribo being like, oh god, and then another ghost popping up, which is the sister Mio, who would be older than her, but she died when Pink and Fluffy was really young. And it's just like, okay, that was like the biggest kind of thing. The Mio ghost really does nothing except do some mischief and then just kind of helps out a little bit. But nothing to like Uribo's kind of effect. And even he is kind of pretty small as it gets through the movie. Then we also get a demon involved, but it's kind of not like your traditional kind of demon. It's kind of a demon that like brings people to the hotel. Like she found this bell, rung it, and then he like eats food and shit. It's really kind of weird because that is literally it for that demon, Suzuki. It's like, okay, I don't even know why you got a name, but all right, do you do? So those supernatural elements kind of like help her like with bringing people into the inn, with her chores and all that kind of stuff, and then we get into like the three visionette kind of things, where she finds this one group, these two people, a father and a son, and the son's kind of feverish, and no other hotels kind of got a vacancy, so she decides to bring him to her inn, and they kind of like, oh, all right, thanks, and he of course is kind of feverish and everything. He's kind of being kind of an asshole, but you find out that they've been dealing with the death of his mother, and he really has just been kind of been hostile to pretty much everybody. He pretty much wants to leave as soon as possible and doesn't really care that much. Though his father's like, hey, we needed this kind of rest. And the thing is, Okko tries to do her best to kind of like please him and everything, but she also does kind of rail at his ass for being just kind of an asshole. The grandmother tries to chide her and also gets her to apologize, and I'm like, okay, I understand politeness is an important thing, and especially in the kind of service industry, but you really need to call people out when they're being rude assholes. That's kind of my thing. And I'm like, okay, and they try and figure out some way to kind of help. And he's like, yeah, I kind of want this, and I want cake. So she actually goes out at night, tries to find cake, can't find it, and instead comes back and makes a pudding based off of the hot springs. And she leaves it there for him. They even have a kind of shrine to the dead mother as they're eating, and he eventually does eat it, and he really liked it, and it kind of changes his disposition. So then he's kind of apologizes. They kind of part as friends, and we find out that the father was kind of like a traveling kind of journalist and writes a thing about the inn, and that of course drives up business and everything like that. The second person is a fortune teller, and this one kind of works out because the first one kind of helps her to kind of acclimate to the inn, and during these things she's seen stuff with her parents thinking that they're still alive and all that. It's like, it's not going to work out. And she is sent by the grandmother to kind of check on this fortune teller chick because she hasn't really eaten her meal, the meal that was left for her, and they wanted to see if she maybe wanted a lighter thing or something. We find out that she's a really good fortune teller. She kind of needs some help wearing kind of the traditional garb because she hasn't been here for a while, and that she's there because she had like broken up with her boyfriend. She had done a fortune and said that it was a really good thing, but the dude broke up with her because she'd been spending more time with doing the fortune telling thing, and it was like, hey, I don't need to do anything, it's gonna be alright. And yeah, that kind of left her to be bit in the ass. And she kind of likes Okko because she like comes in, gives her kind of the jelly. She's like, hey, this is pretty good. Gives her this kind of juice as she's soaking in the tub and not tub, hot spring kind of thing. And then she decides to kind of take her out and do a mall excursion. It was really kind of strange. I don't mind mall excursions, but it's like a mall montage that really doesn't achieve anything other than the trip there as she's freaking out because of the whole thing. Tells her whole story to the fortune teller Glory, and she's like, yeah, it's okay. And her ghost friends were there too to kind of help her out, mainly just Uribo and Mio. And Mio is less antagonistic. towards this point, she at first was kind of more of a mischief maker because she was kind of trying to help out her sister more and just be kind of like disparaging to Okko. But at this point, they're like, hey, okay. And it was just, all right. And Glory thanks her for everything that she did and also gives her like all these clothes and everything. Like, okay, yeah. Just good kind of customer service thing. And that's kind of where that leaves off. Then we get towards the end of it, and we see that this family, the Kiseis, have come, and the father can't eat any kind of unhealthy foods. It's got to be really bland. He's definitely been in the hospital. So Okko goes to her rival, Pink and Fluffy, and she had been talking about how they've been doing all these kind of things with like the menu and everything, and she needs something for the guests, and she of course obliges her and gives her all these kind of things, and they're able to figure out what's going on and make a really good meal for him. And he's like, yeah, this is pretty good. Can't drink sake, but they got this kind of rice concoction thing that works out. All these kind of foods that he normally wouldn't eat, they're able to prepare in a way for him that he can work out. And you find out that he had been in a coma, and he's the truck driver that killed Okko's family. This, of course, freaks her out because she gets to the point where she had also been told by Suzuki that it's coming to the point where everybody's going to be leaving, and her parents had pretty much been hanging around being like, well, no, you'll be okay. And she's freaking out and crying and everything, and she runs out. But as she's running out, she almost kind of looks like it hits by a car, but it's Glory. She's like, I thought you need help. And then they go through the whole thing. And of course, the grandmother this time's like, oh shit, I should have kind of looked that up first. And was trying to get Pink and Fluffy to take them at her inn. But Okko comes out and says, I'd be happier if you'd stay here. It's like, oh, okay. You kind of had to get through this at a pretty good clip because it's a movie. Because this is an important bit of her dealing with like her parents' death and the person responsible for their deaths. Well, responsible. He did action. It's the dude feels really responsible for it. I'm like, yeah. The thing is, you didn't attempt to do it on purpose. Your objective was not to kill them. You know what I mean? He does feel the responsibility, and she's like, no, it's okay and everything. All are welcome here and all that, and they still decide to stay. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool, but it just like, there was just not a lot of time to deal with that. Because then it kind of ends, and we see that throughout the rest, there was also bits where she was doing a festival dance thing with Pink and Fluffy, and they're saying that she really wasn't into it, but I saw no evidence to that whatsoever, because it looked to me like she was trying her hardest to get the whole dance thing down. And they were both going to do it this where the film opened up with this. They were going to end on it pretty much that same kind of festival, and that Uribo and Mio would move on to the next life and come visit the inn after they're reincarnated. And that's pretty much where it ends. They're doing the dance, they move on, and that's it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice. But this was really strange because I'm like, okay, this is an elementary schooler pretty much saying that they're going to become an innkeeper, and you kind of see them accept that kind of thing, but they're pretty much arm twisted by a spirit. I almost kind of would have... There's just kind of too much going on, because the supernatural elements are just kind of there and then fade off. I understand that was probably intentionally done to kind of help her get through the death of her parents, but it's just accelerated to a point that it's like, I would almost rather have had it be entirely supernatural, or kind of extra, take out the supernatural elements because they weren't as effectively done as they should have been. Now, granted, the other option would have been to have this done as a TV show, and that way you've got more room to breathe, more things to do with the characters, more things to do with the lessons to be learned, to actually see the gradual acceptance of Okko to being like, yeah, I'm pretty, I kind of want to be an innkeeper. I want to continue this tradition because this really makes me happy. You kind of see it, but it's just kind of more halvesies in my opinion. I mean, like, it's not as fully committed to being shown and told, rather than we need to get through these story beats because we've only got like an hour and 30 minutes. So, overall, I enjoyed it. I would recommend it to anybody that's got kids or whatnot, because it's not really violent or anything. It's not really crazy. I It wasn't like an emotional feel thunder punching. I mean, you felt for her when she was dealing with the complete loss of her parents when she finally comes to that realization. But other than that, it's just like, okay, we got to get through these things. And I kind of wish there was more time spent on certain people as well. Now, granted, at the end of the festival, you do see the Glory Fortune Teller, you see the Akane kid, and I mean, like, oh, yeah, she's got more people around her. Yes, she might have lost her parents, but there's other people to help her through that and to provide other kind of things that the parents might not have done had they lived. Because we don't know. You know what I mean? It's always that kind of thing. It's like, all right, kind of see how this goes. So, if you don't really have anything, or if you need something that you want to watch with, like, kids or whatnot, this is definitely a recommend, but it's kind of weaker in the character development front than I would like. Now, granted, I'm not trying to, like, review this on the fact that it doesn't have any action. I know what this is. This was more of a slice of life or anything, so if you're into action, this isn't going to be it. And if you're into character development, you'll get some. So, if you need something to watch, go for it. If you don't seem that interested in it, I don't think you would be missing much. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.